if you're in that bracket. But what about if you're a small business owner? What's your reaction to that? Let's take a look. And Rachel Reeves reckons that she is being criticised because she's a woman and that misogyny is raging in the public sector. What do you think to that? And luxury cars will no longer be allowed on the mobility scheme. Is that fair or not? And jury trials are set to be scrapped for the majority of court cases. What do you think? All of that and lots more. I'll tell you who I'm desperate to talk to tonight. The British woman who missed out on being the world's strongest woman because they let a male enter the contest. Honestly, we live in an absolute clown world. All of that and more. Getting stuck into it. Political commentator Alex Dean alongside me, as is Labour peer Lord McCabe. But before we get stuck in, here's your 6 o'clock news headlines.
Michelle, thank you, and a very good evening to you. The top story tonight at 6. Well, major movement on the Ukrainian peace negotiations, with Volodymyr Zelensky saying Ukraine is now ready to move forward with the framework of a US-led peace deal, telling the so-called coalition of the willing that Europe must be included in any security decisions. According to a text seen by the Reuters news agency, he says he is prepared to discuss the sensitive points of the agreement directly with Donald Trump, and also wants European leaders at that meeting. He's also calling for a workable plan to deploy a reassurance force inside Ukraine. Meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer, speaking on the same call, says Kyiv has proposed constructive changes and that the majority of the text so far, he says, looks acceptable. He's now urging allies to firm up their commitment as talks progress. Also breaking tonight, a leaked memo from the Justice Secretary David Lammy suggests the government's preparing to abolish jury trials for most criminal offences, keeping them only for murder, for rape, manslaughter and matters of major public interest. Well, that confidential document, marked sensitive and official, outlines the biggest shake-up of criminal justice in decades, meaning judges, not juries, would decide around 3/4 of cases currently heard in Crown courts. Ministers say the changes are needed to tackle the 77,000 case backlog, but the plan would also expand magistrates' sentencing powers and create a new tier of judge-only courts. Turning to news on the budget, and packaged milkshakes and bottled lattes will soon fall under the sugar tax as Rachel Reeves prepares to announce her budget tomorrow. The Health Secretary told MPs today the levy will now cover flavoured milks, milkshakes and even milk substitute drinks, putting an end to their long-standing exemption. Wes Streeting also warned that it's because obesity, he says, is costing the NHS billions. Companies have until January 2028 to cut sugar below 4.5 grams per 100 millilitres or face new charges. Plain milk, though, is excluded and drinks made fresh in cafes won't be taxed, but business groups still warn it risks hitting a sector already under pressure. That comes as the government says local mayors in England will soon be given new powers to introduce a visitor levy. That would be a charge on overnight stays in hotels, B&Bs and guest houses. It's all part of plans being set out ahead of the budget tomorrow, with ministers saying the decision on whether to impose that tax will rest entirely with mayors and local leaders. If introduced, it would add a small fee to tourist accommodation bills, similar to that of city taxes already used across Europe. A major incident's been declared in West London, where 150 firefighters have been battling a large blaze at a warehouse in Southall. Crews were called to a 2-storey building this morning after residents reported hearing huge explosions there. The London Fire Brigade says a warehouse and retail unit is still burning, and they're urging people nearby to keep windows and doors shut because of the thick smoke. And in France, police have arrested 4 additional suspects in the investigation into last month's Louvre jewel heist. Prosecutors say the group, 2 men and 2 women, were detained today, joining 4 others already under formal investigation after the daylight robbery. 4 thieves escaped with more than $100 million in gems, raising serious questions about security at what is the world's most visited museum. And tonight, investigators admit there is still no trace of the stolen jewels. I wonder, Michelle's got a very nice necklace on. Perhaps she's to blame. Those are the latest headlines. I'll be back with you in an hour.
Thank you very much for that, Sam. Hello, good evening to each and every one of you. My name's Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs & Co. with you till 7, alongside my political commentator Alex Dean and Labour peer Lord McCabe. You're very welcome tonight, both of you.
Much obliged.
Of course, as are each and every single one of you at home, join the conversation all the usual ways. Email me gbviews@gbnews.com. Go to the website gbnews.com/yoursay. Of course, you can tweet or you can X me. But look, let's start the programme tonight with some breaking news then, shall we? Minimum wages are now set to increase next year. This means a pay rise, of course, for millions of workers then. So from next April, the national living wage will rise. It'll go up to £12.71 an hour. That'll be for eligible workers aged 21 and over. So that means that 2.4 million low-paid workers will benefit. The national minimum wage for 18 to 20-year-olds, get this, everyone, that will increase by 8.5% to £10.85 an hour, apparently. What do you make to that? Are you at home saying, yes, drinks on me at the pub at the weekend? Or are you a small business owner with your head in your hands going, how on earth am I going to afford this? Join the conversation. But Alex Dean, your thoughts?
Since the national minimum wage was introduced in the 1990s, it's risen at about twice the rate of inflation. So it would be circa £6.70, £6.80 if it had just gone up with inflation. Instead, here we are with it nudging £13. And one of the challenges this creates is for employers seeking to bring people into the workplace. Very often, minimum wage jobs are entry-level jobs or jobs for people who have struggled in the past, perhaps coming from a criminal background, and they need someone to take a chance on them. And when these jobs become more expensive, it means that employers are less likely to take a chance on somebody and indeed less likely to employ them at all. I note, too, that you announced rightly that the 16 to 18 and 18 to 20 brackets look like they're going up. Government is widely rumoured to be scrapping those tomorrow in the budget, so we'd have one unified rate of national minimum wage at the higher level. That makes it even harder for younger people to get into the workforce. With an unemployment rate that's already at 5% in this country, the kind of level that would have had the Labour Party howling in opposition, I think they should really think carefully before making it even more expensive to employ people. People should remember this isn't instead of the national insurance contribution by employers, a tax on jobs rise that they put in the last budget. It's as well as that. Yeah, the apprenticeship wage apparently will increase by 6% to £8 an hour. Steve, what do you think?
Well, one of the things that the government is committed to doing is trying to make work pay, and the national wage will still be way below the cost, the real living wage in both London and the rest of the country. So, I mean, yes, there is a pressure on employers, and I would recognise that, particularly small employers, but there is also a real need to get people into work in this country, and you won't do that if they can be better off on benefits. So we have to be realistic about raising the living wage. I mean, all of these things happened when the Labour government first introduced it all those years ago. I remember the Tory opposition keeping us up all night in the Commons because they said it would be the end of the British economy. It's been nothing of the sort, and we do actually have to get people into work and make work pay.
Steve, that's fair. The concerns that were expressed when the policy was introduced have proven to be unfounded. That's absolutely right. But they were had when the discussion was about the national minimum wage thereafter going up with inflation. It's gone up at 2x inflation, which makes it so much more expensive for people to employ young people and people coming into the workplace often for the first time. There is a tension. I accept your point that work should always pay more than benefits, but there is a tension between your noble ambition of getting more people into work and making it more expensive to employ anyone. And there's one more point, if I may, Michelle, which is that above the band of minimum wage, there's a clutch of people who employ people at a bit more than minimum wage, whether it's 75p, a pound more an hour than the minimum wage. And those people who do that, and there's competition for people in that sort of bracket, are going to have to raise their salaries too. There's a huge additional burden. There's a huge additional burden already on employers because of the national insurance contribution hike in the last budget. This just makes it so much harder hard of people.
But it is a peer review body recommendation, and there is no point in having a peer review body who are meant to take into account the different effects on employers and employment in certain parts of the country and the age and the type of jobs. There's no point in having a peer review body if you just ignore it when it's inconvenient.
I have the opposite point of view to you on such bodies. I believe the right thing to do is for politicians to hold the responsibility for these decisions, so that in the end, if we disagree with them, we can vote them in or vote them out. Instead, what government has done, on my side and yours, is to farm these things out to arm's-length bodies who are never elected, who cannot be held directly accountable by the electorate. And then government says, well, we have to do it because this arm's-length body has recommended
But this government is choosing to do it. The last government actually ignored the peer review bodies with regularity.
There is no benefit in having a body that gives you advice if you can't decide whether or not to accept it. So actually saying that it comes from an external body, for me...
I'm pointing out they are charged with looking at the range of factors that you have to take into account when making that sort of recommendation.
And ultimately, it is up to people who are elected, not this body, to make the decision. And those who are elected to represent us and to govern us should decide things in the political round, including the state of the economy, with unemployment going up faster than it's done in some time, now at 5%, and with vacancies at a significant month low. The number of jobs being advertised are already lower than they've been for quite some time. It's just the wrong time to be doing it.
And let me bring in some of my viewers. So Christine says, Michelle, the minimum wage simply cannot be supported by businesses. The margin for the rest of the workforce, who may have more qualifications and longevity, experience, etc., will be so narrow that the employer cannot afford to increase the whole workforce. She says it's an absolute disaster. And she feels that Rachel Reeves is financially illiterate. Gillian says, Michelle, employers just simply won't be able to afford to employ people. This is all unnecessary. The economy is in a mess, she says, caused by Labour. With regards to the latest increase in the minimum wage, says another viewer, it is clear that this government is stuffed with idiots, says the viewer, not me. They don't have a Scooby about how economics works. One of my other viewers just says, Michelle, what this is going to mean is that inflation keeps rising. The sentiment that a lot of you are saying to me is that what's going to happen here, it's great if you get a pay rise, but ultimately many of these businesses, some of you feel, will just increase the prices in order to absorb that extra cost, and then around and around we go. What do you think to some of those viewer comments?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't know exactly where your viewers are coming from and what, kind of incomes they are on. I meet plenty of people who want to be in work, who are really struggling to make ends meet. All of these things have to be seen in the round. Yes, it is true, as I acknowledge, that some smaller employers will have problems, but there are other things being done. I mean, the rail fare freeze is the first one we've seen in years and years. This is a government that's trying to ride two horses, both of which it inherited. One is a terrible economy and the other one is a cost of living nightmare. And they are two things that were in place before that election ever took place. And I think your viewers would have to try and think back and recognise that.
Pay scale hikes are plainly inflationary, because when you raise the amount of, when you oblige people to raise the amount they have to pay their staff, they have to put, especially in an environment where other costs are going up, costs of energy and so forth, they have to put up the cost of their goods and services in order to be able to pay for those things. Net, that means that there are going to be fewer jobs in the economy. And it's not just, it's very easy for us who are involved in politics or observe it to say this is about small businesses and so forth. Some of the largest businesses in the country, in order to protect their position, are going to wind up having fewer vacancies. They're not going to replace people as they move on or retire, and in the end it'll mean a smaller workforce. It's bad for the economy, it's bad for the individuals in the economy.
Frederick, one of my viewers says, Michelle, you've got to only look at what people like supermarkets are already doing. They have less jobs. They've already moved to things like self-service tills. They're already moving to things like card only. If you're just tuning in, good evening to you. Just a recap of that breaking news from next April. The national living wage, minimum wage is what most people know it as, will rise by 4.1% to £12.71 for workers aged over 21. It will go up for 18 to 20-year-olds. It will rise by 8.5% to £10.85 an hour. And if you have an apprenticeship, then you will get a 6% increase to £8 an hour. Why is all this stuff occurring now, the day before the budget, by the way? Is there going to be any point to this budget tomorrow? I don't know. Anyway, look, Rachel Reeves has asked for her party to unite around her. She says now she's been criticised for being a woman. What do you make to that?
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dewbs, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I ever got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Bold.
They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline.
Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Dewbs & Co with me, Michelle Dewberry, Alex Dean and Lord McCabe. Terence says, Michelle, I absolutely support putting the wage up for youngsters. I think it's a great move, he says. It gives inspiration to people to get off their backsides. You know, there's about 1 million young people, what they call NEETs, not in employment, education or training. I think that is such a scandal, and not just for the broader economy, but also for the individual as well. You've got to try and make something of yourself, and what better time when you're young and you're filled with all of that energy. Anyway, look, I'll tell you someone who is quite energetic at the moment, Chancellor Rachel Reeves. Now, we all know we've got the budget tomorrow. Personally, I cannot wait, ladies and gents, because all of this speculation in the run-up to it has been driving me crackers. I'm so pleased it's finally almost over. Anyway, she now has called for her whole party to unite behind her. She also said that she blames misogyny for much of the criticism that she's been receiving. And she was talking tough. She says that she will be the Chancellor in 2 years' time. She will be the Chancellor this time at Christmas. What do you think, Steve? Misogyny? Is it the source of her words, do you think?
Well, I mean, look, all chancellors take a bit of criticism, and this government's been getting criticised from the day it won the election as if it wasn't allowed to win. But I think it is true that women in politics get a much much tougher time than men, and I think they get it both in the form of threats and abuse they receive, and I think some of the things that have been said about Rachel are ridiculous. I mean, Kwasi Kwarteng passed the budget that crashed the economy. I don't recall anybody referring to him as wee Kwasi the apprentice clerk, but, you know, Rachel from accounts is all over the place because it suits people to try and dismiss her like that.
Well, no, people will say that they call her that because they would argue that she misrepresented the level that she was operating.
That she had a master's degree in economics and that she had worked at the Bank of England. I don't think so. I think that is a manufactured thing, and it wasn't used against her male opponents, and it isn't used today against her male opponents. I think there is an element of misogyny in this.
Only because you've mentioned Kwasi Kwarteng, I'll remind you that a sitting member of the Labour Party referred to him as only superficially black. Remarks for which she was suspended. It's not only women that get outrageous criticism that should not be justified in politics, but actually I accept Steve's premise that women oftentimes, especially online, get abused far worse than men. We treat all our politicians like dirt in this country, and I think that's terrible, but I think we treat women even worse. But, Michelle, you know this already, but when I ran for Parliament last year in Finchley and Golders Green, the outgoing Member of Parliament, Mike Freer, didn't stand again because he'd been on the receiving end of a number of death threats, including by the guy who went on to kill Sir David Amess, and a different set of people set fire to our association office. I think we've got the nature of political discourse wrong in this country. The most important thing is to say that we shouldn't treat politicians the way we do. But within that, I think Steve has a point about treating women worse in their abuse. Having said that, I believe this Chancellor is a very poor one, and I think that raising national insurance contributions by employers, it was a terrible thing to do. It was a tax on jobs and increasing that tax on jobs. It cannot be misogynist to say that. And as soon as people try to deflect that kind of substantive criticism by saying you're not allowed, effectively, to criticise people on their performance because of their sex, that's when you lose me.
The Health Minister, Karen Smith, she actually spoke to GB News about this earlier. Take a listen.
The first Chancellor in 300 years of this, you know, of having Chancellors. She's very proud of that. And yes, of course, we know that, you know, often women are the only women in the room. I've been in senior meetings and I'm the only woman in the room. So we know that women have still got a way to go in breaking through some of those barriers. But Rachel loves a challenge. She's had that challenge through her whole life. I think the story she tells about, you know, the boys when she played chess against them, not expecting to be beaten by the girl. That is a bit of a fact of life that Rachel's grown up with. That's what I've grown up with.
I mean, we've got, I think it's about 40% of Parliament at the moment are women. You've had Labour for quite a long period of time now having all female shortlists. And by the way, there was even having debates about whether or not so-called trans women, i.e. men, was allowed on those lists, but don't even get me started down that avenue. So what if you're the only woman in the room? So what?
Well, I think the point she was making is that there is a tendency still in certain quarters, and actually I agree with Alice, I don't think it is solely happens in the case of women. It can happen for all sorts of people who belong to different ethnic and religious groups, but there is a tendency for women often to be dismissed. You must recognise it happens in the media at times as well.
No.
You have never encountered that in the media?
Well,
no.
All right. Well, I've read plenty of women who work in the media describe exactly the sort of thing I'm saying happens in politics.
But then
I see it all the time. I see people who reply all to social media messages I'm involved in because I'm on a panel with someone, and the lurid stuff that the woman on the panel is getting is disgusting. So I recognise a bit of what Steve's saying.
But what are you on about? What do you mean, viewers commenting?
Correct.
On what you look like, or what?
On people's appearance, and they say different things to women to what they say to blokes.
Yeah,
so
of course.
There is some truth in
Well, what's wrong with that? If you've got working eyes and you're commenting on the appearance of an individual, I have viewers getting in touch saying,
Michelle,
"No, look at that so-and-so, scruffy so-and-so on the panel. Look at this, look at that." People just observe what they see.
You're dissembling a bit. I think you're being knowingly coy about what the sorts of things that people say about appearance, and it's not just that you look like this or that. So I just want to go back to the point we're making about politics. I'm a member of a party that's led by Kemi Badenoch, who's going to take, by the way, some lumps off the Chancellor tomorrow, and I don't think it's going to be misogyny in the way that she is going to criticise the Chancellor. Whatever you think of these individuals, my party's previously been led by Liz Truss, Theresa May and Margaret Thatcher. We positively look forward to the day that Labour joins us in that sort of leadership.
Was you a little bit embarrassed, though, when Rachel Reeves was crying in Parliament? When you said that, that's my Chancellor, that's like, you know...
Well, no, because, I mean, I don't think there is anything wrong with somebody being a human being. And, I mean, just the other day I saw something on the news about some MP who was disclosing some horrendous experience he'd had, and he was being applauded for being brave and being forthcoming.
Sure, but that wasn't...
I think if someone... And I don't know what Rachel Reeves was upset about at the time. I don't think anyone does. I think if someone has had some bad news and is distressed and shows that they're a human being, I cannot myself find anything to criticise in that.
I thought it was ridiculous, and I think it actually does set women back. If you want the top jobs, you do actually have to have a little bit of something about you.
What, as if you've no emotions? I can't believe that.
I've got huge amounts of emotions, but if I'd had a bad day and it was 6 o'clock and I opened my programme going, it's 6 o'clock and I'm Dewbs and going, my bloke just dumped me. And
that wasn't what she was doing, to be fair, was that she was sitting there and she was obviously a bit distressed about something that had happened, presumably quite recently.
Well, so they say, look, there's going to be lots and lots of conversation. I don't believe that, by the way. Anyway, there's going to be lots and lots of conversation about who should bear the brunt of the budget tomorrow. Friends of GB News converts in today's You Decide poll. Get your telephones out, scan the QR code on the screen. We're asking you a simple question. Who should Rachel Reeves prioritise in the budget? Should it be pensioners? Or should it be workers? Or you're divided, ladies and gents. 51% say that pensioners and 49% have said workers. Coming up after the break, should jury trials be scrapped?
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello, we've got some wet weather pushing through the Mediterranean this week. It should turn drier by the time we get to the weekend, however. In the Canary Islands, it's looking relatively dry, highs around 19 degrees. A little bit cooler towards Lisbon, 11 or 12 degrees. Now, here's that wet weather I mentioned. It's moving across parts of Italy, Slovenia, as well as Croatia and into Greece later on this week. But parts of Italy, as well as Croatia, should get drier by Friday or Saturday, with temperatures remaining a little below average. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's clear and frosty for many of us overnight, but turning increasingly cloudy from the west as a band of rain starts to slowly move in from the Atlantic. These Atlantic fronts eventually replacing the cold air that we've got in place, but not before a ridge of high pressure extends clear skies across many parts of the country. Even the showers in the east fade away overnight, but there will be some showers in the west of Scotland and increasing cloud across much of western Scotland and Northern Ireland, West Wales and the far southwest by the end of the night. Frost-free here as temperatures rise through the night, but elsewhere a widespread frost, temperatures dipping as low as -6 Celsius in some sheltered spots. Now, a chilly start for many central and eastern parts of Scotland first thing Wednesday. Much milder to the west, although wetter here with outbreaks of rain and a freshening breeze. We've got some heavy and persistent rain just moving into Northern Ireland at this stage in the morning. Wales and the southwest turning cloudy but mostly dry to kick things off, whilst the Midlands, the east and the southeast of England see plenty of sunshine from the word go, albeit with the chilly start. And actually temperatures rising reasonably nicely in the southeast as we keep the sunshine into the afternoon along with light winds. A fresher breeze further west, winds really picking up across exposed western and northern coasts along with this band of rain, so a wet and breezy spell expected. That rain then eventually sweeps through on Thursday morning, and then it's a cloudy day on Thursday, and the one thing to note about Thursday's weather is it's going to be very mild. The winds coming from the southwest, lifting temperatures back up into the double figures widely and in some places the teens. A cooler spell once again returns this weekend, but with some unsettled weather.
Thank you, Britain, for helping us reach 8 million followers across social media. Thank you for making us a part of your daily life.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Motorists on the A55 eastbound between junctions 31 and 32 in Holywell should prepare for overnight diversions starting at 8. Lane closures are on the A194 to M northbound near junction 2 in Gateshead due to an incident. Cheshire's M6 northbound between junctions 17 and 18 has 2 lanes closed, causing 10-minute delays. 20-minute delays are on Staffordshire's A38 northbound from A5121 Burton to A5132. Kent's M20 westbound entry at junction 9 is fully closed. And on the trains, disruptions affect both Grand Central and Great Northern services between Stevenage and London King's Cross. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Dewbs & Co with me, Michelle Dewberry, till 7. Political commentator Alex Dean alongside me, as is Labour peer Lord McCabe. Lots of you getting in touch about this misogyny suggestion. Lizzie on Twitter says, Michelle, I was one of only 4 women working in a department of a large car manufacturer. She said, I'm sure you can imagine what kind of banter. She says, I was listening to, but she said, I just got on with it. It happens. She says, it shouldn't, but it does. I've got to tell you, actually, Lizzie, banter is not as prevalent as it once was. I am a little bit old-fashioned, I must confess. I do miss the good old days of being able to freely banter, being the person who it was aimed at and also the person who was doing the aiming as well. Those were the days. They seem to have changed, though. But anyway, look, juries. I want to talk to you about this. You'll have strong opinions on it. Do you think that if you have to go to court, you should be granted a jury? Well, now they will only be reserved for the most serious offences, murder, rape and manslaughter. This is a massive shake-up. Many people are saying that essentially it could mark the beginning of the end for jury trials. You have strong opinions on this, Alex Dean.
I do, and look, until now, apart from the Chagos giveaway, I think the agenda this government has pursued has been basically defensible. I mean, I disagree with most of it, but I'm a Tory, and they won a very significant majority, and they're entitled to do all manner of wild left-wing things. But this is basic constitutional vandalism of the first order. It is an outrage against the basic democratic system. Nothing in their manifesto, nothing to suggest that they were going to do it, and indeed in no way consistent with their traditional left-wing position, which of course many on the left cherish jury trial as a bulwark against an overmighty state, an authoritarian state, as they might see it. We must not let this stand. And I think the only real hope we can have, given that this is actually something that David Lammy's department has announced to the other departments, this isn't just a rumour, it seems they're seeking to pursue it. The only hope we can have is that the government's rich tradition of U-turns is realised in this example too, and that tomorrow they promptly put a spike in it.
One of the things that raised my eyebrows is David Lammy himself, when he was at Shadow Justice, he used to tweet things like this. Robert Buckland is wrong to consider proposals to limit jury trials for certain offences. The right to trial by your fellow citizens is fundamental to our democracy, he says. It would be wrong of the government to abandon this valuable tradition for short-term benefit. He also, on a separate piece, said the right of an individual to, quote, the lawful judgment of his equals was enshrined in the Magna Carta of 1215. He says jury trials form part of the bedrock of our democracy, and it would be a historic mistake to limit them now. Steve McCabe, your thoughts?
Well, look, I've got to concede I've got some sympathy with Alex on this point. I think this is a very big decision. At the risk of being ticked off for putting it to outsiders, it is the product of former appeal court Judge Levison's review, which was requested. And the reason it's requested is 3 things. 1, with an 80,000 backlog in cases. 2, victims are getting no treatment at all in court. They're waiting years years, 4 or 5 years to see a rape trial take place. And people are using the system to make trials break down. And quite often, I mean, if you're a juror, how on earth are you going to sit in a jury for 12, 14, 15 months? It's ridiculous to what it's doing to normal people. So there is an argument for looking at the system and trying to do something about it. My own gut instinct is that in a lot of cases, this might not be as dreadful as some people are suggesting. But I think there must be some element of appeal introduced into what he's doing. So if there is a good reason for thinking that a non-jury trial would be adverse in terms of the chances the person would get legally, then it could be changed.
Well, the trouble with your position, which is a reasonable one, is that along with this, it is claimed in the same document that David Lammy has circulated that the right to appeal will be largely curtailed. So actually, it's going to go the wrong way, even on your own terms. And
no, I'm not talking about an appeal after the event. I'm saying there must be some sort of interim measure where you can say, look, hang on, in this case, it really has got to go to a jury trial.
Oh, I see. You distinguish out. Well, look, the point is, in what he's circulated, Lammy has written that there is no right to trial by jury. Our Justice Secretary wrote that. He's absolutely wrong. Yes, there is. That is the very point. It is a basic protection in our democracy that you have a right to trial by jury. And it's not just something that the last government or the government before that came up with.
Well, we've had examples in the past. I mean, Northern Ireland, obviously. We've had examples of where it's had to be suspended. And as I say, in these really complex fraud cases, or these cases that deliberately are dragged out, we're finding it harder and harder to provide jury trial.
Certainly. And in the Diplock court cases you mentioned, where juries were not featured in judge-led only trials during the Troubles, one, I think still it was constitutionally wrong, but two, it's for a specified reason and for a specified period of time. If what the government wants to do is to say, we're going to clear the backlog by doing something extraordinary and then we'll restore the rule of law, I'd still disagree with it, but at least they would say it's a temporary outcome.
As you say, it may be, well, it hasn't been determined yet. He's responding to the Leveson report. It may well be that there will be an argument for doing this as a temporary measure. I mean, I think in any major gangster who is able to play the system and avoid a proper jury trial by stringing it out over years while his victims suffer, I don't think he should get away with playing the justice system.
If the state finds it harder to convict people, it must try harder in that process rather than making it easier for itself to bang someone up, because in the end, innocent beyond reasonable doubt is still the right test, and being tried by a jury of your peers is still overwhelmingly popular in this country. The two things that, when polled, people in this country say are the most important fundamental rights, they say that they want free access to healthcare and right to trial by jury. And I think there is simply no...
But they also want victims to get a fair deal in the courts.
Of course.
And that isn't happening.
I agree with your point that justice delayed is justice denied. And governments of all stripes, the Labour Party until 2010, the coalition government thereafter, the Tories governing alone, and now this one, have systematically underfunded the justice system in a disgraceful way. But the remedy to deal with that is not to abolish trial by juries, not least because it's not juries that are slowing down the system in the first place.
I've never done jury service, and I would absolutely love it. I disagree with Richard, the viewer. He says this is a brilliant idea because now there's even less chance of being called up for that dreaded jury service. Who's this? Ted says, Michelle, let's just go the whole hog and just ask the government who is guilty or not. It feels like it's happening unofficially, so why not make it slightly more transparent? Then we will have an official dictatorship, he says, with no legal trials. North Korea, here we come. I hear you. Lots of people not supporting Rachel Reeves at the moment when it comes to this claim of misogyny against her. Keep your thoughts coming in. Look, do you support the farmers' protests? By the way, I've got to tell you, a government spokesperson says no final decision has been taken when it comes to these jury service. Make of that what you will. It says they've been clear there's a crisis in the courts causing pain and anguish to victims, with 78,000 cases in the backlog and rising, which will require bold action, they say, to put right. Also, I've got to tell you, the Metropolitan Police are facing accusations of two-tier policing after it was revealed that Scotland Yard have clamped down on a farmers' protest. I want to take a look at that after the break. I'm Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs & Co with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here. GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain's economy is at a crossroads.
And this budget day, every decision counts.
From taxes and rent to the cost of living.
Whatever the outcome, the GB News family will be there
with expert analysis breaking down what it means for you.
Budget day all day tomorrow.
Only here on the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dewberry, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hello everybody, Michelle Dewberry till 7, Alex Dean and Lord McCabe alongside me. A conversation that's really got many of you hot under the collar over the previous weeks and months is the mobility scheme. Who should have access to it and what cars should you be able to get? Well now, the government is saying that they are going to axe, quote, premium brands from this scheme. Apparently 85% of claimants make additional payments to get these luxury cars such as BMWs, Mercedes and Audis. Is this the right decision, stopping access to these top cars?
Yes. Motability was taking up nearly £3 billion of taxpayer cash last year. You may well have not just a right, but a good social reason, an empowering one, to be helped with transport, but no right to be able to choose an Audi or a Lexus or an Alfa Romeo, which are available on this scheme. And at some points in the last couple of economic cycles, a really non-trivial percentage of luxury cars and higher-end cars have been on the Motability scheme. It's crazy the taxpayer is supporting that, supporting people to be able to be more mobile, get to work and get to see their families and so forth, of course. But this kind of expenditure, crazy. And we almost sleptwalked into it. It was happening by accident. The government is right to put a stop to it.
Do you agree with that?
Broadly, yes. I mean, I remember looking at this when I was on the Works and Pensions Select Committee a few years ago, and there were concerns then. The idea that we're paying... Look, anybody who's got a genuine disability and needs a car for proper access, we should support them. I'm utterly in favour of that. I would say they should get a basic model to meet their needs, and preferably one that's manufactured and assembled in this country so that it supports the economy. The idea we're pumping out money to let people buy luxury vehicles. And actually, I think the threshold for who qualifies should be looked at again as well, because I am not at all convinced that everybody who's applying and being awarded that money is entitled to it.
Let's just remind ourselves of how generous the government scheme is and how big it's got, right? So up to £27,000, you can acquire the car without any upfront payment at all as the claimant. As it gets more expensive, you may have to contribute £95 or up to, on the sliding scale, £7,500. But a BMW 3 Series, which is on the scheme, or until the government stops it, starts at £42,000.
Absolutely.
Right, so it's just absolutely crazy.
It'd be quite nice for anyone else to get a car on that basis.
Of course, many of the claimants are suffering from things like ADHD, things that are rather difficult to verify for doctors, but moreover, often won't impair your driving. So I think this sort of thing is nuts. And when you're talking at the scale that we're talking, so by the way, Motability is now the UK's largest fleet operator. Right? More than 800,000 cars on the road are under Motability. It's absolutely right for the government to say, of course we will help you, but not to this extent.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then the flip side of this, some of you watching this will be on these schemes, and I can almost hear some of you shouting at your screens going, hold on a minute, Michelle, it's our benefit, and if that's what we choose to assign that benefit to, what's it got to do with anybody else? What would you say to people like that?
I would say that you've got no right to a car that expensive under the scheme. And if you want a car that expensive, you can, of course, pay for it yourself. There's nothing in the law that says.
But they would argue they're using their benefit that they've been awarded to pay for it. So they would argue, essentially paying for it themselves out of their allocation.
You may have missed.
Well, they're getting a very high value preferential amount of money. I mean, that most other people don't
no
get.
upfront payment. Right. Thereafter, it starts at £95. You know, things like the Beamer being in at starting price 42k, which is unbelievable. Someone like Alfa Romeo, there are many people who are struggling, working hard in this country, who pay the taxes that help people on these kinds of schemes, who would never dream of being able to afford a BMW or an Alfa. So really, I think it's right. You know, the scheme, the government, the automotive sector can take a look at what's both affordable and reasonable and realistic to help people.
I mean, you could almost create a whole industry on my viewer comments alone, because if I had a pound for how many people have got in touch and said, Michelle, bring back and expand the three-wheelers. But that's what people are saying. But then other people that are genuinely disabled, and I'm trying to stick up for you guys here because I can hear you getting in touch in your droves as well. You will be saying, why should I be shamed for having a genuine disability in a three-wheel Robin Reliant?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't bring back the three-wheeler, but there is an argument for having a basic car that meets the needs of the person. They're supposed to get the vehicle because they have real disability issues about how they can get access to places. You know, you don't need a Mercedes to do that.
Well, and look, there is no human right to have a Lexus, right? And this scheme has now got so big that it's more than 20% of all the cars in the UK being sold, right? More than 1 in 5. Every car in the UK being sold is under the Motability scheme. It's got crackers, but if it's going to remain at anything like that kind of scale, the cost has got to come right down.
You've got to stop as well all of these video appointments when people are trying to claim eligibility for this thing and that thing and the other thing. There shouldn't be any virtual screening appointments. If you're trying to claim that you're disabled or whatever, you should be physically face-to-face with somebody, if that's someone that has to travel to you, if you're not mobile or whatever. You shouldn't be having...
If you're claiming a benefit on that basis, absolutely. I mean, there may be other types of benefits that you could actually use video access for, but if it's about mobility, then surely to goodness you've got to understand whether it's real or not.
There you go. Honestly, if you're ever bored, look at something like TikTok or whatever it is. There's this whole industry now that's been spawned of people just advising other people. Have you got this? Make sure you've got this. Say that. Do this. Do this. It's like a whole kind of cottage industry that has popped up. You'll have strong opinions on that, I'm absolutely sure. Lots of you are getting in touch about what you are calling two-tier policing. This is because you'll all be familiar with the farmers that have been protesting protesting, saying that it's essentially becoming financially unviable now to be a farmer and produce things in this country. Well, there's this huge farmers' protest set to take place tomorrow. And now the Met Police are facing these fresh allegations of so-called two-tier policing because Scotland Yard have now clamped down and essentially now said that these farmers cannot take scores of these vehicles, these tractors and so on, into London. They're apparently claiming serious disruption to the life of the community as their reason why. What do you think to this? People are saying two-tier. Why can people like pro-Palestine bring London to a halt every week?
Well,
Feel like it?
Well, we don't live in France. I don't really want to see Downing Street or half of London clogged with tractor protests. But actually, I do think people have got a point that we've had far too many protests in London over the last year or so that have blocked the streets and curtailed people's ability to go about their normal lives. And what I'd like to see is a much bigger restriction on the scale and the frequency of all of these protests.
Yeah, I'd be up for that, but what you can't have is a system where people say, well, our march is basically against Israel. OK, well, you can march every week for a year or two. Well, our march is in favour of the countryside. You can't march at all, right? We can all agree we may want lots of democratic freedom to protest, which will include stopping up the street, something I wouldn't extend it to, but, you know, that might be a position people take. We might say, no, you've never got the right to stop up the public highway. Again, I might disagree with that, but many people will hold that view. What you can't have is a chop and change, where essentially, according to the courts, the police are saying yes to this, not just once or twice, but every time for a couple of years. And by the way, making a lot of people feeling very uncomfortable in their own city as they do it. But you can't protest once about the rural economy. I just think that's wrong.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's just lots of you are getting in touch and you do feel, this is the phrase that's coming through thick and fast, you feel like it is one rule for those people and another rule for you farmers. Many farmers, of course, watch this programme. You feel in absolute despair at the moment. And I bet you've got your head in your hands as you await tomorrow to see what the budget will actually hold for you as well. I do just want to tell you about something nice. It's very rare that we have nice things going on in this society, isn't it? So let's tell you about something this Christmas. We have got a lovely event for you, I've got to tell you, and we'd love many of you guys to join us as possible on Saturday, the 13th of December. You guys are invited to join the GB News family for our Carols by Candlelight concert. If you want to try and get tickets, you can get your telephones out as we speak. Scan the QR code on the screen right now if you don't want to do that, or you can't, you can go to gbnews.com/carols. If you can't be with us, worry not, ladies and gents, because the concert will be recorded and broadcast as well on Christmas Eve. What a treat. I love doing Christmas things like that. I do just want to remind you of that breaking news that I started the programme with, announced today at 6 o'clock. If you are on the minimum wage, this is nice, you see, let's keep that theme going of niceness. From next April, the national living wage set to rise by 4.1% to £12.71 for workers aged 21 and over. If you're 18 to 20, you'll get an 8.5% increase to £10.85 an hour. If you or someone in your family is an apprentice, for 16, 17-year-olds, that will rise by 6% to £8 an hour. Some people, I mean, obviously you'd be very anxious if you've got a small business. Some people are saying, why is there this disparity between wages for different age categories? Should there still be?
Well, that was how it was originally introduced, and the argument at the time was that younger workers were of lesser value, and so it would be easier to recruit them. We have an issue now, of course, and you touched on it yourself earlier, about the number of young people who are not in work, and we cannot go on like this. And frankly, you know, I'm in favour of paying them a decent wage. I'm also in favour of a scheme to say that no one under 25 who's fit for work should be allowed to be unemployed.
Yeah, but you're also going to raise, you're going to scrap the two-child benefit cap, so you've got workers that are making prudent decisions on about the size of their family based on what they can afford, while simultaneously you've got people that need help from the benefit system allowed now to have an uncapped number of children and get taxpayer support.
Yes, well, I must admit, I have my own doubts about that. I think it is perfectly reasonable that we can't say to people that every single family actually action can be planned. But I think we should be wary about thinking you can get unlimited access.
Final 20 seconds to you, Alex Dean. The floor's yours.
I think we're putting ourselves in moral jeopardy when there are families that look very carefully as to whether they can afford a second child and bring that child up, while saying to people who do not and perhaps never have worked that the state will support them to have many children. And I think actually, we think back in the day, Rachel Reeves used to say, Labour is not the party for people on benefits. Labour is a party for people who work. She should get back to that a bit.
One of my viewers says, Michelle, please can you point out, if you want a BMW on mobility, you do actually have to top things up with your earned money. Hey, ladies and gents, I didn't get a chance to talk about the world's strongest woman. Guess who won that competition? A man. This world is going mad. See you tomorrow. Thanks, panel. See you, everyone. Have a good night. Night.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's clear and frosty for many of us overnight, but turning increasingly cloudy from the west as a band of rain starts to slowly move in from the Atlantic. These Atlantic fronts eventually replacing the cold air that we've got in place, but not before a ridge of high pressure extends clear skies across many parts of the country. Even the showers in the east fade away overnight, but there will be some showers in the west of Scotland and increasing